Bill O'Brien makes 3 new hires, and one thing in common with all 3, they make BC serious about recruiting.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is Locked On Boston College, your team every day. I'm your host, AJ Black of Eagle Insider, part of the 247 Network. Been covering Boston College for over a decade. If you're looking for Boston College news, analysis, and details on your Eagles, you are in the right spot. Locked On Boston College is a free daily Boston College podcast available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. On today's show, we are going to talk about 3 hires BC has made and 1 BC hasn't made yet. We'll look at the new assistant GM, a position that hasn't existed before. A new offensive line coach. Is it better than Matt Applebaum? I'll explain why. And then the new wide receiver coach. It's the same as the old one. We'll get into all 3 on today's show. So let's kick that off. But before we do that, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. Now, BC had 3 hires that they had to make this offseason based off the firings that had happened on the first week of the offseason. You know, we lost Tim Lewis, the defensive coordinator, Daryl Wyatt, the assistant head coach / wide receivers coach, and Matt Applebaum, the offensive line coach. Now, Bill O'Brien has said he was going to go quick. He wanted to make quick decisions. He wanted to make quick hires so that they could get moving on transfer portal work and recruiting. So he's already done that. 2 of the hires are in. Wide receiver coach is one name that you probably have heard of before. This is Joe Dailey, the wide receivers coach for Jeff Hafley from 2020 to 2021. After his time at Boston College, he went to with the Carolina Panthers. He also went to Kansas as an analyst, spent some time at Hampton, and then was supposed to be the wide receivers coach for App State, but parted ways with their head coach before the start of the season. Now, you look at his resume. Some of the things about the resume I had to be honest, worry me a little bit. You look at what happened in Carolina. He was dismissed because he had an altercation with Robbie Anderson, the wide receivers coach. They said with the App State thing, something happened between him and that coach. I don't know what it was, but he ended up not staying there. His up and downs have been a little bit. It's been a little bit of a roller coaster, but he also has results at BC. This is a guy that is from Northern Jersey. I believe his father-in-law was the AD at St. Peter's Prep, and he's connected through a lot of schools in North Jersey. So that's a good thing, right? One thing about Daryl Wyatt, the former wide receivers coach, was he was a Texas guy. This is a guy that was from Texas, recruited heavily in Texas. I look at what that pipeline is not working for BC. You had tons of wide receivers like Jaden Williams and guys that committed, then decommitted. It just wasn't working in that spot. So maybe you want to try to refocus back to some of the places that you've been more successful, which is New Jersey. Now, you have a guy that does Northern Jersey in Joe Dailey. You have a guy that does Southern Jersey in Stephon Huggins. And you have Dailey, who has recruited some guys that have been big names, right? Lewis Bond, who just graduated, was recruited by Joe Dailey. Joseph Griffin, yes, he did not do a whole lot here, and he transferred out, and I don't think he'll be coming back. I don't think Joe Dailey coming here will mean he's coming back. But he was a 4-star recruit out of Springfield Central. He was a 4-star, and other schools wanted him. He had big offers coming out of high school. Joe Dailey was a big part of that. So you had the bigger names. You had some guys that did come here. And then, guys like Jaden Williams as well. He was from Texas, but you had him commit here as well. So I think in terms of recruiting, it's a smart idea to I don't want to say shut down Texas, because you brought in guys like Tyler Vrabel, and there's been other players from that area that have been successful. But having kids from Texas who play in high schools bigger than Alumni Stadium, who are far away from home, is not the best idea. I don't think it's the best use of your recruiting tools at this point. I just don't. And then you're recruiting against every other Texas school, which there's a million of them. So I like the idea of going back towards Jersey and trying to really solidify an area BC has as a pipeline area. And you bring in a coach that was part of the success that you saw with Zay Flowers, that recruited Lewis Bond. He has that experience here. So, it's the most splashy pick. I don't think it's the most splashy pick at all. It's, kind of down the middle. It wasn't anything like, oh, this is bad, but also not like, wow, what did BC do? But I got to say this, and I'll say it for every hire that we make in this. BC went 2-10. Getting, up and coming college recruit coaches here is not going to be the easiest job in the world. They're not going to want to hitch their wagon to a team that was really bad last year, because another bad year, you never know what's going to happen with the staff. You just don't. And whether we, as people within BC think that, watch or cover it, know how BC takes forever to make moves, it doesn't matter what we think. It's what the players, the coaches, they think of that. And that's why I look at, these names that people want to hear, and some of it's just going to be too tough. It's you could have done this after the 7-6 season and sold it that this is a team on the up. But when you fall apart the way you did, you lose 10 straight games. You risk not winning a single FBS game. Your job to get that much easier. So Joe Dailey, I think, is a fine pick. I don't think it's, as I said, splashy, but he has experience at BC. He's from the Jersey area. He knows the staff. And the thing I also should mention, too, as someone who's been around the program a bunch, oddly enough, he was at practice a couple times I was there. I'm not sure what was going on or why he was there, but maybe, I don't know, maybe it's a connection with O'Brien that I just don't know about. But he was there. He was there at practice. So that's a connection right there, too. So, you're going to have the wide receiver room itself is going to be looking markedly different, because you obviously are losing Lewis Bond to graduation. You get Jaden Skeet hopefully coming back, Reed Harris hopefully coming back. I would love to see this group develop more guys. You've done a nice job. Darryl White did a nice job of getting those one or two guys every year that were really good. You had your Zay Flowers, you had your Lewis Bonds, and then you had a smattering of Reed Harris in there. But you look at the depth on the roster, and you didn't have like the splat. When an injury happens, it gets a little bleak. So getting more guys in there that have more, that you can develop and bring up could be helpful. Because, last year during that 2-10 season, BC was playing 3 wide receivers basically all game. They had nobody else, whether it was the beginning of the year when you had Bond, Harris, and Skeet, but then Skeet gets hurt, so you just replace him with Poe. You didn't see much of VJ Wilkins. You didn't see many of the freshmen. Obviously, Jonathan Montague was hurt. It was just very top heavy. So maybe it's a goal to build that depth in that room. Get some of those other guys ready so that you can use different guys for different things. You don't need to just rely on the same 3 guys the entire game. Just something to think about moving forward. Now, next up, we're going to get into the offensive lines coach. This is a coach that had a big history, but his last stop may bring up questions. I'll explain what I mean by that in just a moment. The holidays are officially here, which means gift hunting season is on. And if you want something meaningful, personal, and guaranteed to get a reaction, Aura Frames is the gift that delivers every time. It's not just something you wrap, it's a way to share memories, because Aura isn't your average picture frame. You can preload the frame with photos before gifting it, so when they plug it in, the memories are already there. No apps to figure out, no setup headaches, just instant smiles. I have kids. They're always busy. We're always doing things, and we don't always have time to be with the grandparents. But this is a perfect way for us to show them great pictures of our kids. You all have phones. You all snap them, upload them. They love to see what's going on when they're not with us. So for a limited time, save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com to get $35 off Aura's best-selling Carver mat frames, named #1 by Wirecutter by using promo code COLLEGE at checkout. That's auraframes.com, promo code COLLEGE. This deal is exclusive to listeners, and frames sell out fast. So order yours now to get it in time for the holidays. Support the show by mentioning us at checkout. Locked On Boston College, AJ Black here, and I want to tell you about our Everydayer Club. Thank you for making Locked On Boston College your first listen of the day, and thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. And if you're a true Boston College fan, the Everydayer All Access tier is built for you. You'll get a one-on-one text access with me, all access episodes, exclusive newsletters, and a 15% discount to the Locked On merch store. Head to Locked On Boston College.superstream.com and get yourself signed up. You want to get this for Christmas. I'm telling you, you're going to enjoy it. You're going to unlock all access, and you can find this link in the show notes now. This is Locked On Boston College. AJ Black here, and thank you all who have made Locked On Boston College your listen every day. And for all of you who have made us part of your daily routine, thank you so much. And now, the next hire was one I reported. Yes, I reported this with Matt Zenitz of CBS. And that is the hiring of the new offensive line coach. And this is UMass offensive line coach Kurt Anderson. And before we all get our pitchforks and torches out, let's hear about what Kurt Anderson is about here. Because, yes, he came from UMass. Yes, they were 0-12 and probably the worst football team in all of history. Hold on a second. Breathe for a moment. Just take a big cleansing breath with AJ. Whew. Okay, so before he was at UMass, Anderson worked at Northwestern. He also worked at Arkansas. And during those times, he was important in a lot of different big-time recruiting battles, including one of the best tackles in the last class. And I'm pulling his name up right now because I totally forgot what it was. Peter Skoronsky. I knew his name. Peter Skoronsky, who was a first-round draft pick. So this is a guy that's got a lot of experience. He's worked also at the NFL level with the Buffalo Bills. He has connections, I believe, with Doug Marrone from the Bills. So that's how that, again, with the Bill O'Brien coaching tree, sometimes it's tricky to find out who's where, but this is a connection. So I cannot hate on this hire because he coached with the UMass Minutemen. He obviously knew the head coach who was at Rutgers as a defensive coordinator for years before. They coached against each other. Rutgers coach brought him in. He worked with what he had. Now, if you look at the statistics, you understand what he had to work with at UMass, which was, I think he had 12 starting offensive linemen. It was crazy. Like, no guy was ever in the right position for very long. So he didn't get a chance to recruit there. He didn't, or to get his recruits on campus. He was just there for 1 year. So I take that year and I just throw it out. You really need to throw it out because it's not an accurate representation of what he's done. Now, I mentioned his recruiting, right? Naronsky was a top 20 recruit that went to Northwestern. So he has recruiting chops. Like, he brought in would you kill as a BC fan? Would you die for a 5-star top 20 recruit, especially in the offensive line? I know you would. Don't lie to me. I know you would. So I look at this and I say, that's a big thing for BC, right? You wanted a guy that can come in, because what was the knock on Matt Applebaum? Was that he wasn't a very good recruiter. He couldn't close on a lot of big names. Like, a lot of the offensive linemen that are coming here, they were brought in because of John DiBiaso or another regional recruiter. Applebaum himself was not a guy that could close a ton of recruitments. That was a big knock on him. Anderson should change this. And if you need to know more about him, this is not, I think a lot of folks are worried that this is going to be Dave DeGuglielmo, or Googs, as I used to call him on the podcast all the time. And this is not going to be one of those dudes. This is a guy, I think, that will be a solid offensive line coach. This is, if you go to his offensive line Twitter page, his name is O-Line Pride. He actually has it updated to say offensive line coach now. And he's got one of my comments, and I love reading Twitter. So it says, these Dr. Pepper half tuition giveaway challenges should be mandatory to actually throw the football overhand, which you sold me there, Kurt. I love that. And then he has a whole thing with his steaks, which will look amazing. That being said, food, Dr. Pepper giveaways aside, he's got a lot of work ahead of him. And I think one big piece that he's going to need to identify is what BC needs in the portal, what they have, and who should be playing where. Because that was one thing last year with Applebaum that just was kind of maddening, right? You had Logan Taylor playing tackle when he should be a guard. And that was a decision he made. And maybe he had film or thought things in practice to think that, but it didn't seem right. You had Dwayne Alex starting at center at the beginning of the year, and he struggled incredibly those first few games. And you kept him out there when Michael Crowns probably could have done the same thing, or probably much better. So improvement on the recruiting trail. Hopefully we see improvement on the field. Again, I say this. Is it a splash hire? No, it's not. Is it a safe hire? Yes. Is it better than average? I would think so. I think this is a pretty good hire, a good veteran offensive line coach who I don't believe has been fired anywhere. So that's good because when you brought in like Dave DeGuglielmo, remember him? He was let go after a year, literally everywhere he was at. It was like a cycle of like he went here and then here and then here and then here. And guess what? He lasted at BC 1 year and then he was gone. So I think you got something here that should be a nice fit for BC. Look at the picture on the cover of this post, this episode. Does he not look like an offensive line coach? He looks exactly like that, right? So hopefully this is a good culture type of guy too, and a good fit. Now, in our final segment, you have your wide receiver coach, you have your offensive line coach. I got 2 quick topics we got to get to. There's a new position at BC that really shows that they're serious about recruiting, and maybe an update on the defensive coordinator and what they should be looking for. I'll give you some thoughts on both of those in just a moment. NFL Sundays move one big play and suddenly everything feels different. That's what you're making live bets with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. And with FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift. A receiver gets hot, defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. I'll tell you what, I was watching that Buffalo Patriots game. At halftime, I'm going, I think the Buffalo's going to score here. I think Buffalo's going to score here. They're getting all this momentum. You can do next drive results on FanDuel. I was feeling good because I was getting them over and over and over again. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, FanDuel.com. Place your NFL live bets all season long. With FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. Locked on Boston College, AJ Black, and I want to thank each and every one of you who had a little bit of grace. My internet went out yesterday. I don't know what the heck happened, but my internet was gone, and I could not get I could not record last night. So this is why I'm recording at 4:13 because they just finished setting up my internet. So I was cranking here. I wanted to get this episode because I had a lot to talk about. And for my everydayers out there, here you go. You're not missing an episode. I am not missing an episode. I'm getting you the news right now. Now, there was another position that was filled, and it's not actually a new position. I mean, an old position. It's a new position. And that is in the front office. They hired an assistant GM. Now, before BC had a GM, they had one GM. It was Spencer Dickow. He has now moved on to another. He's moved on. They hired Kenyatta Watson to fill that. Now, to show BC's actually putting a commitment into this and adding more staff to their directory there, they added a new position called the new assistant GM. Now, the big goal for all of this is to take things off the plate for Bill O'Brien. That was a big thing he said about it on his podcast. He wants to be able to focus on coaching and not about all the other things. This was the same things Jeff Hafley complained about. So this hopefully will take even more off of his plate so that he can focus on the field and what he needs to do there. That's a good thing. So who did they hire? It's Ryan Bartow. Ryan Bartow he also worked at 247. He worked at Rivals before he got into the coaching world. Well, he got in the coaching world and worked at Florida State, Syracuse, and most recently as a director of personnel at Sacramento State. He worked at FSU with Kenyatta Watson, so they know each other. I have the picture. The picture I have up on our thumbnail here is I actually cut out Kenyatta on it because I just couldn't fit him. But it's them together. So this is a staff that these are two recruiters that know each other. These are two recruiters that have worked together. This gives you much more experiences. Again, I don't want to poo-poo the former recruiting staff, but when you bring in Kenyatta Watson, when you bring in Ryan Bartow, you're bringing in guys that have years of experience, and that is good. That can only help what you're trying to do on the recruiting trail. This shows, again, that BC is willing to try to spend more money to improve the product on the field. Now, this is going to help not just recruiting, but also the transfer portal. I really am interested to see what Kenyatta Watson's vision is for the portal, because I think he really wants to flip this roster and improve a lot of the things that were hurting BC last year. But with rev share and NIL, what's he going to be able to do? What's he going to be able to do to get those players here? That's going to be something I'm very interested to see. And with Bartow, he's his lieutenant to go and get those things done. Now, I like that BC has added these coaches. I like that we're seeing, more new roles every single year. Last year it was like Jackson McSherry, and you saw some other Berge Nigerian the year before. We haven't heard who they're going to fill with that spot yet, but you're getting a guy now that can help again with recruiting. So it's not on Bill. I'm guessing what their pie in the sky, golden, what they want to do is they want to, have O'Brien pick out who they want to recruit, let their assistants, these, Watson, Bartow, go out there and recruit them, and he seals the deal. You see all those pictures all the time during visits of O'Brien with the recruit. That should be what he's doing. He shouldn't have to do a lot of the legwork, because that's going to take him away from coaching and working with his roster. You have all these guys. And then additionally, these guys are going to, Bartow and Watson are going to do a lot of the roster management, right? Who's getting paid what NIL deals, how's the rev share going? They're going to deal with a lot of that. Now, I'm sure O'Brien will have a say in it, but this is going to be a lot of their responsibilities. So that's something big to watch. Now, the last thing I want to bring up here on our show is the defensive coordinator position. We have not heard anything. And no, for my everydayers in the All Access group, I send you texts of things I've heard. It's been pretty quiet, but I have one that I'll be sending out later. Now, Al Washington is a name everyone keeps talking about, right? That's, some people like it. Some people think it's not the right fit. I'm not sure if that's where they go. I'm not really sure. Or if, Bill O'Brien goes for somebody that's, in his circle, because Al's not. But I'm sure there's a lot of people that'll speak up for Al. I think what we're going to be is whether O'Brien goes for a coach that's going to bring in other positional coaches that they like and that they've worked with, or if he's going to be a coach that is going to work with, the Dan O'Briens, Jordan Thomases, and Corey Robinsons of the world. And that's his decision. I don't have my thoughts on that, but I think that'll be something important to watch for, to see how that kind of plays out. I think when you're looking for a defensive coordinator, you need somebody. This is going to be the bigger hire. Like these other two hires, they're professional coaches. I think there's a lot made to what they can do and what they can't do, but a defensive coordinator, this is a big deal, especially after what happened last year. You need to do something good and bring in something that beyond, like, no offense to Tim Lewis, but like when they hired him, no one knew who he was. You need somebody that has a little bit of zazz on the trail, someone who can bring some excitement to your defense. So hopefully that's what we see. Those are my thoughts on that for now. And I also want to say, on our last little segment here, I want to say goodbye to Jack Funk, the patron saint of Eagle Insider. Jack Funk entered the transfer portal. He played 52 snaps, and he's a favorite of my site. And we talk about him a lot. He was the latest BC player to enter the portal. He played 52 snaps on special teams. But maybe he'll be the guy in a couple of years that becomes our Phil Knight, because he's got a master's or he's got a business degree. He's going for a master's somewhere. But that's the latest. Not obviously, I'm just kind of playing right here. He's not a big loss because he didn't really play, and I don't think he was going to play. But I wanted to mention that now BC is 8 players in the portal. Thank you all. Again, think about becoming part of the Everydayer Club. I hope to see you guys over there. And signups are in the show notes, and I'll see you all again tomorrow for another episode of, actually, hold on. Whoa, AJ, slow down. Follow me on Twitter at AJBlack247. Check me out on Instagram. And if you have not joined us on TikTok, I am one away from 1,000. Help us become the 1,000th follower on TikTok. I hope you see you there. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and I'll see you all again tomorrow for another episode of Locked On Boston College. Your team every day.